sites. And that wasn't the only time. During the...
Right. See, remember, these people aren't here to defend themselves.
Sure.
You're making accusations which, if true, and I'm not doubting you, but
Right.
it's my job to challenge you, which, if true, you're painting Ontario to be a banana republic ruled by thugs and cowards and incompetents.
Well, it is. It absolutely is. You have no rights. In Caledonia, one day you had all the rights that you would normally understand, and the very next day, the OPP removed them. And they denied you the rights.
So the Ontario Provincial Police have removed your rights?
Oh, absolutely. I've been arrested for standing on the side of the road with a Canadian flag. I spent a night in jail. And 4 people have now been arrested in Caledonia for simply trying to put up a Canadian flag.
You see, now, there have been incidents, and I've seen this in other contexts, for example, the Middle East conflict, people waving an Israeli flag, and the police have said, stop doing it because there's going to be trouble. They're going to come over, there's going to be a fight, we're trying to keep the peace here, put the flag down. Maybe irritating, but the police will say, we're simply trying to keep order.
Well, I mean, that's obviously what the OPP say, but the problem is the natives come into town, they put flags on top of people's houses. They climb to the roof, they put up a flag, the OPP watch. And then if you stand there with a Canadian flag, they'll put you under arrest.
Fair point.
And so you'd go to Caledonia, there'd be flags, Mohawk warrior flags, all the way down all the hydropos. Sam Gaultier today has permanent brain damage because they went into a house he was building for his daughter. They put a warrior flag on the roof. He went up. The OPP refused to stop them, so he had to go up to the roof and take down the flag. And when he walked into his own house, they took the railing off the steps, they beat him over the head, and they crushed his skull in. Now, those people have been charged.
Right.
Some of them are still in court, but that was an event that the OPP...
So again, allegedly, they haven't been convicted?
I think they're still in court, yeah. But it's not allegedly that he's got brain damage.
No.
Okay.
You're alleging that they did this. Look, I mean, I know how frustrating it is because you are convinced you know certain things, and you probably do. But at the same time, you want the defence of the law and the protection of the law, and we have to use the law. He has brain damage, this poor man. The allegations are he was hit by some people who have been charged. It's allegations.
Well, the other side admits that they did it. What they admit is that, yes, we did this, but all the land in Haldimand Tract, which goes all the way from Lake Erie all the way up to Waterloo, that's all native land. So we have a right to enter your home and do this. They don't deny it. Like the other side doesn't say, no, this didn't happen. They simply say, we have the right to do it.
They say they have the right to beat someone over the head with an iron bar?
Oh, absolutely. They walk, they have masks, they carry around a baseball bat. When you argue with them in court or in public, they will absolutely say they have the right to use violence because they believe that they are not subject to Canadian law.
So in court, with a judge, and I still have respect for the judiciary here, I know many of the judges may have a certain political point of view, but they do apply the law. In front of a judge, a native activist says, I have the right to use violence, the law doesn't apply to me. What does the judge say?
Well, normally what happens is that first they go before the court and they deny that the court even has the authority to hear the case. So that generally gets adjourned 2 or 3 times. The native will keep standing up and doing a spiel about not recognizing the jurisdiction of the court and that the Canadian law has no jurisdiction over them. But sooner or later, because the evidence is overwhelming, those natives generally plead guilty, accept whatever punishment the court's given out, but they do try for a good 6 months, sometimes a year, to argue that the court has no jurisdiction.
Right. But just very quickly, when this is said to a judge, I have the right to use violence, what does the judge say at that point? Are they not in contempt?
The judges are normally very patient. They've heard this many times. Generally at the end of these proceedings, the judge will say, I definitely have jurisdiction, but we're going to adjourn it for another date.
We're going to hear a lot more of this when we come back in a few moments on The Michael Coren Show. We'll see you very soon. I know you won't go away. Welcome back, Michael Coren Show. Second half of the show, we're talking about what happened just off of Gaza, Israel, and the world reaction. But Gary McHale, who's President, Canadian Advocates for Charter Equality, the organisation's not really the issue. It's his experience with Caledonia. I should mention here, Christy Blatchford, who I've said this before, I think is probably the most perceptive, no, not probably, is the most perceptive journalist in this country, has this incredible ability to gallop through the cluttered nonsense and get to common sense. And she's not paying me to say this. She's writing a book about Caledonia. Thank the Lord for that someone with a reputation is. I assume you figure quite heavily in the book.
Well, she tells me that there's going to be a couple of segments on us as well. She's interviewed me a fair bit and been to her home a couple of times. Right. And we provide her with lots of videos and court documents to back up things that we say.
From typical Toronto guy, me, Caledonia first happened. I was angry. I thought it was wrong. Yes, native people haven't always been treated properly in the past, but frankly, this country is composed of people who often have come from persecution, whether it's Irish from the potato famine, Scots from the Highland clearances, Ukrainians, what the hell they went through, European Jews. People who have not been treated well have formed a great country called Canada. Native people haven't been treated well. There may be, the land disputes have to be solved. But what was happening, the law was being broken. Innocent people who had nothing to do with this, ordinary people working hard to live in the area, being assured it's all okay, were being attacked, intimidated, threatened and so on. You decided to get involved. But it's all okay because even though the government may be a bunch of cowards and incompetents, the police, they're good guys. They know what's right and they'll protect you. So the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, Chief Fantino has been on the show. Good, tough cop. What's the problem here?
Well, I think what happened is that we have the OPP, as a result of Ippewash and other incidents in Canada, have developed this policy by which they act as if everything that they do has to be negotiation. Even there was an example where 2 officers were kidnapped. They drove down the wrong road, they were taken out of their car, they were tied up, their guns were removed, the car was destroyed. And the government spent several hours negotiating their release and not a single charge. And this is the approach of the OPP, no matter really how serious the charge is. Unless the media has a clip to put on TV, there's no charges in Caledonia if it doesn't get caught by TV.
Look, you know police culture. I certainly know police culture. Those cops would have been incredibly angry. Other frontline officers would have been very angry. I can't believe that ordinary cops in the OPP do not have sympathy for the residents of Caledonia.
I think they do. I think they, matter of fact, it's interesting. Mayor Traynor, the mayor for Haldimand County, she produced an audio tape to the Ontario Ombudsman. I was in the room. It's a recording from June 9th after all those events took place. An officer phones the mayor up, leaves a message on an answering machine, and makes a mistake of not turning off his cell phone. So now you can hear what the officers are really saying behind the scenes. And it's clear from the tape that they're very angry that, because an attempted murder had just taken place, very angry that nothing was being done. The local inspector, Inspector Haggith, testified in court that after those 3 events on June 1st, he goes back and says to the superintendent, it's time for us to start arresting the natives as they commit the crimes. He has ordered, this is his own testimony in court just a couple months ago, he has ordered not only will he not arrest the natives, but he will create a strategy by which to control the residents. And on June 9th, they brought in the Toronto riot squad, not to arrest the people who just committed those 3 sets of crimes. They brought in the riot squad from Toronto, ordered them to line up against the residents. They were there for about 15 minutes. Toronto ordered them back in the buses, and they left Caledonia. They refused to accept that order. But they never brought in the riot squad to arrest the natives who had just done all those crimes.
I've had emails from cops in the OPP, because this issue has come up in the past, at least in passing, and they have said, well, the 3 or 4 I've received have all said, we are embarrassed by this situation. It's a blow to us. We've tried to do the right thing over the years, and this has been a low point for us. But they've also said there are arrests taking place, but afterwards, when they think the situation will not be so controversial.
Well, that is true. The arrests take place. But again, if you have a case where 100 crimes took place, and because there's now media attention, you make a decision to lay 1 charge, so that you can do the press release and say, see, we're laying a charge. Can you really say you've been very successful? And the reality is there's so much crime that takes place in the early days that the OPP had never charged because the media never aired it. I mean, there's no charges for the people who kidnapped those 2 officers. There was a resident who was kidnapped too and forced to make a video. No charges for that. And what happens is, the courts have already ruled on this many, many times. The OPP, when there's an occupation going on in Caledonia, whether it's a development or someone's home, the OPP immediately show up and put a police line up. That police line is not really there for crowd control. It's to make sure that the property owner doesn't interfere with what the natives are